What if I told you that a small but powerful portion of the population, just 4 to 5%, might be psychologically wired for manipulation and could be climbing into the highest positions of influence? That's not a dystopian novel. It's a claim made by Dr. Jordan Peterson on one of the most listened to podcasts in the world. But is this a clinical truth or a convenient frame to explain social unrest and cultural change? Today on CCTakes, we're not passing judgment. We're putting the statement and its implications on trial. Jury, the floor is yours. Peterson begins with a number. 4 to 5% of people, he says, show signs of cluster B personality disorders.
The problem is that 4 to 5% of the population, something like that, is cluster B, that's the DSM-5 terms, histrionic, narcissistic, antisocial, psychopathic.
Let's break that down. Cluster B includes 4 disorders: narcissistic, inflated self-worth, lack of empathy; antisocial, rule-breaking, disregard for others; borderline, instability in mood and relationships; histrionic, excessive attention-seeking.
Or they have dark tetrad traits. They're Machiavellian, they're sadistic. That's about 4%. Okay.
Peterson emphasizes the darker edge, what some psychologists call the dark tetrad: narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and sadism. Studies vary, but his 4 to 5% claim isn't unheard of in clinical literature.
Yes. And so then you have the problem, and the right's going to face this more and more, particularly because the left had to face it when they were in powers.
Yes.
How do you identify the psychopathic parasites, 4% of the population, who are clothed in your clothing and
Right.
waving your flags,
Right.
but who are only in it for narcissistic benefit?
But that raises the key question. Should we be using clinical categories to interpret culture and politics? When does psychological insight turn into societal labeling? Peterson doesn't stop at diagnosis. He suggests a behavioral pattern, that these individuals move where the power is.
Okay, so the question is, how do these people maneuver? And the answer is they go to where the power is, and they adopt those ideas, and they put themselves even on the forefront of that.
The implication is clear. Certain people don't adopt ideologies from belief, but from ambition, mimicking values to gain influence.
They invade the idea space, and then they use those ideas as false weapons to advance their narcissistic advantage.
Yes.
And so,
He doesn't call out specific movements, but let's examine the theory and practice. Take the LGBTQ plus movement. In the 2010s, it gained widespread cultural support rooted in equality and inclusion. Fast forward to today, and some claim it's splintered. Tensions between trans activism and feminist groups, especially around women's sports, have drawn backlash. Critics say these shifts reflect opportunism, individuals or factions hijacking a message for power or visibility. Is this what Peterson is pointing at? Or are we overextending a psychological lens into a complex cultural shift? Peterson then shifts from politics to morality. He compares these figures to religious authorities who perform virtue, but hide darker motives.
that.
Right.
But the ideas are completely irrelevant.
Right.
All they're doing is they're the Pharisees. They're the modern version of the Pharisees. They're the people who use God's name in vain, right? As they proclaim moral virtue.
Yes.
It's a dramatic metaphor, one rooted in history. The Pharisees, figures who outwardly followed the rules, but inwardly chased status, power, or control.
Yes.
Doesn't matter whether it's right or left or Christian or Jewish or Islam.
To be fair, Peterson emphasizes this isn't about one side. He lists both ends of the political and religious spectrum, but the message is clear. That moral posturing may be a cover for deeper manipulation. So what do we do with that? Is he exposing a timeless flaw in human behavior? Or creating a climate of mistrust, where anyone who stands for something might be labeled a narcissist in disguise? So what do we have? A clinical claim about 4% of the population, a behavioral theory about ideological mimicry, a moral warning about weaponized virtue, It's part psychology, part philosophy, part social commentary. Some say it's a wake-up call. That power attracts manipulation, and we need frameworks to detect it. Others warn it simplifies, even stigmatizes, entire movements and people. At CCTakes, we don't judge. We present. Jury, your verdict? Leave your judgment in the comments. Is Peterson diagnosing a real threat? Or is the diagnosis itself flawed?